In the meantime, the FDA is warning against the use of hydroxychloroquine for treating COVID-19 patients, at least in an outpatient environment. This follows the release of a study from the Journal of the American Medical Association that showed some COVID patients treated with hydroxychloroquine, or with chloroquine, I believe, developed irregular heartbeats. If you've been watching Squawk Box throughout this pandemic, this news is not surprising to you. Mayo Clinic cardiologist Dr. Michael Ackerman joined us a month ago with a very similar warning.
Virtually all of these drugs that are being considered and being used have the potential to prolong the heart's QT interval, and in doing so increases the patient's chance for the heart to spin electrically out of control into a potentially dangerous heart rhythm. And if that doesn't revert back to normal, then that patient will go on to experience drug-induced sudden cardiac arrest and, worst, drug-induced sudden cardiac death.
Dr. Michael Ackerman is back with us this morning. And, Doctor, thank you for your time. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you, Becky.
What was your reaction to the news in the Journal from American Medical Association? Obviously, this is something you'd been on the lookout for.
Unfortunately, we're not surprised. As you know, we were with you, Becky, and we put out this warning from Mayo Clinic and the Mayo Clinic proceedings on March 25th. Hard to believe it's been over a month ago. And in the Brazilian study that's in the paper that you talked about, at least with the Brazilian Corona cocktail, which was really a high dose of chloroquine, 600 milligrams twice a day, plus azithromycin or the Z-Pak, that combination, the Brazilian Corona cocktail, is absolutely deadly. There was over 2 times the mortality rate in those patients randomized to receive the high-dose cocktail rather than the standard or the lower dose.
What does that tell us about the cases here in the United States? There are some tests that are being run right now where patients who are in the hospital are being given a different cocktail, but similar enough, one that's hydroxychloroquine with the Z-Pak. And I didn't realize the Z-Pak can also create bigger problems with the heart irregularity.
Yeah, both of those medications. So in America, we mostly use hydroxychloroquine along with azithromycin or the Z-Pak. And both of those medications by themselves can annoy the heart's electrical system, can prolong the QT interval, and set up the perfect storm for the treatment itself to cause sudden cardiac death. And last Friday, at the same time, Leor Jankelson and our colleagues at New York University showed the similar thing, that 11% of the patients treated with the American version of the Corona cocktail, 11% prolonged their QTC into the red light territory that we warned about, with their QTC going over 500 milliseconds. And then subsequently, the FDA, through its adverse event reporting system, started to accumulate not only cases of QT prolongation, but the tragedies where the treatment themselves was causing the sudden deaths of the patient. And that prompted the FDA on Friday to put out a warning, a safety med watch alert saying, please do not use hydroxychloroquine or chloroquine in the outpatient setting. Do not. Only use these medications under a clinical trial or in the hospitalized setting, because the benefit has not been proven for the sick COVID-19 patient, but unfortunately, the tragedy of treatment-induced sudden death is being seen already.
You had warned us at the time that, look, you're not an epidemiologist, you're not somebody who's familiar with COVID-19, but you do know what this does to the heart. Have you spoken with doctors at any of these facilities that are actually running these tests? And do you, a month ago when we talked to you, you thought it would be safe to be running these tests in the hospital as long as doctors were alerted to this potential problem. Do you still think that's the case?
Yeah, this issue of QT prolongation, we can navigate around it if these medications work. We can do QT monitoring as a vital sign by an ECG or by smartphone-enabled ECG technologies or by looking at the telemetry. So we can find out who are the patients who are telling us that they're reacting, that they're a QT reactor, and that these medications may not be a good idea. So I still think these trials should continue. We need to know the answer, because currently there are no medications with proven benefit for the sick COVID-19 patient. So we can do these studies and we can monitor for this unwanted drug-induced side effect and change course or correct things if we need to. But we have to find those and detect those who are showing a reaction to these medications.
So I think you answered my question then, doctor. So in a critical patient in the right setting with nothing else to try, and if it was, just to test the efficacy for hydroxychloroquine, you'd say, all right, give it a shot, even at this point, if you could monitor the QT, the cardiac response. You'd say, I mean, that doesn't sound like what we really heard from, the way we're characterizing this piece. So you'd say still give it a shot because we got nothing else as long as you can monitor what happens to the heart.
I think in the sick patient, that's really a great question, because in the sick patient, we are just not seeing a signal of efficacy of therapeutic benefit in hospitalized sick COVID-19. So backs up against the wall, nothing else to try. Could we continue to try the Corona cocktail? Perhaps, but we really need to lean on our infectious disease experts and say, what other options might we have? And if we're going to use these medicines in the sick patient, we really need to be on our A game, because we're starting to put together the perfect storm. On the other hand, I'm really actually quite excited to learn from the clinical trials about what the use of a medication like hydroxychloroquine might mean in the relatively healthy patient in the setting of post-exposure prophylactic therapy. We could have a completely different answer there, where what if there is benefit with hydroxychloroquine? That person, that kind of a person, is a completely different safety profile host, where we might have a lot more safety margin to be able to use a medication like this if it helps prevent the development of the disease. So in the sick patient, it's not looking so good for therapeutic benefit, and the risk or the potential where the treatment itself could do sudden death is definitely there, and it's definitely there, unfortunately, as we predicted together on this show over a month ago.
Okay. And then remdesivir you got to use early on too, before it's in the lungs, really.
Right, and at least in remdesivir, there's not a QT signal, there's not a signal of sudden death potential, but the efficacy signal isn't as exciting as first blush from the early reports.